Hello, this is Dr. Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm actually making a little bit of a different video, and it's based on something I heard on KPBS where a lot of students who go to community college are not transferring. I think they said only 1 in 5. Now, there are a lot of reasons that this happens. Some of them are not interested in transferring. Some of them are going through different avenues, and some of them don't really have the direction to go to the programs they want. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be addressing here. I called this video on how to get into university or get what you want from education. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you is what you really need to know to get to where you want to go. And there are a couple things that are important. First is for you to understand what's happening in the academic areas. Second is why it's important to know is why students don't get into the schools that they want. Third is how to know what you need to get into that. Also what your competition is. And then I will talk a little bit about the final tips that I recommend people do when they are taking classes at community college. I am a community college professor, and probably my next video will be how to excel in an anatomy, physiology, and micro class, which are the hardest classes that most people have to take if they're interested in healthcare. Now, why is this happening? What is happening? And this is it. What most people are saying now is there are less people applying to universities than before. And this depends on where you're applying and what you're applying to. There are some universities where the competition has actually gotten a lot more fierce. There's actually one school I was reading about where they have a special program. They only accepted something like 60 students, and they had students with 4.0s not get in because it really became okay, you have a 4.0, and so what? So does 1,000 other applicants. And so one of the things that's important is for people to do their research on where they want to go. Now, if you're actually a parent and you're watching this because you have a child in high school and you're wondering how to help them, this may actually help you give them the information that they need. If you're a student yourself trying to figure out what do you do next, I'm hoping this actually gives you some idea. Now, one of the things that happens is if a university that you want to go to has a program and it's extremely competitive, GPA will not be enough. And the other question to ask is, should you apply for a lot of these programs immediately or try to do it as a transfer? I usually tell people to do both. You can apply now, and if you don't get in, you can apply as a transfer. But if you are going to community college to try to transfer, the immediate is already a little off. So why don't students get into the school or program that they want? And one of the big things is competition. Like I said, some schools just have a small amount of spots, and they will always take the best applicants. Another thing people do wrong is they don't have the right classes or requirements to get into that program. Think about this. If you're hiring someone and you're looking for certain requirements and they do not have those, you're not going to hire them. It's the same thing with universities, and they want you to have the right requirements. So you have to look at what the requirements are for the program that you're looking at. Many students, they think of that there's a universal requirement, but again, schools will have different requirements. And two schools may have the same program and completely different requirements. So if you know where you want to go, you have to pay attention to that. Now, another thing I ask you is when people ask, well, why can't I get into the program or school that I want? The question I would ask you is, why should your dream school accept you? Think about it. If you're dreaming of a school or a program, it pretty much means there's thousands of other people who are dreaming that school and program. What makes you different than someone else? And that's something you have to ask yourself. I'm not trying to say you're not special. What I'm saying is you have to be able to show you're special on paper. Now, how to know what you need? First is you have to actually figure out where you currently are. If you're at the beginning and you don't know where you're going, that's one thing, and that's fine not to know where you're going. And so I actually broke this down in a couple sections. One is, which I'll talk about, one is depending on age and where you are academically. The other is, the one thing you really want to know if you want to get into a certain program is don't rely on other people telling you what you need. Rather, go to the program's official website and see what they are looking for. They will actually tell you the requirements that they want you to have. The other thing I would tell people is going to an academic counselor is really important. But if you show up and you tell them, yeah, I want to be a astronaut, doesn't matter, They're going to tell you, okay, well, this is what astronauts have in their resume. This is what you need. Go for it. And that may or may not help you. If you want to study astrobiology and there's a specific program you're interested in, you really want to go to that program, look at what they require, and then when you talk to your academic advisor, bring that with you and show them, look, this is what I need. How do I get this? That way, you actually will get what you need rather than getting the requirements for every school known to man. And I actually would say, look at making your own plan. Now, where are you currently? And what's the best time to start? The answer for that is immediately. And what I will say is I'm actually going to break this up into a couple different groups. Again, it is best to begin looking as soon as possible, as soon as you know what you want to do. The younger, the better, but it's not that important. The other thing I actually suggest that when you start looking is start making a curriculum, curriculum vitae. Put everything you do on it, and you can adjust it for other jobs, other programs later. But for initially, just put everything. It doesn't matter if you are uh, helping bilingual students do math or if you're helping clean up freeways. As long as you're doing it, put it on because you may want to use it later. Community service is important for a lot of things, and a lot of people do community service without realizing that they're doing it. If you're doing stuff for instance, your church, write that down, put it down. Now, I always tell people it depends where you are. So if someone was a 15-year-old school, I actually would tell them to look into something called middle college. That's actually taking taking college classes at community colleges while they're still in high school. A lot of programs will actually waive book and fees if they are in high school. And look at schools, if they're interested in a specific program or a specific school, look at what classes they would want them to have. Now, the advantage of that I will address later. If you're 16 and you know the requirements for the school you want to apply to, that's actually one of the big things. If you don't know, if you're just trying to get units so you can go to any, it will be a little different, and I'll talk about that later. If you're about to graduate from a school, or if you've graduated a while ago and you now decide you want to go to a different program and you're going to community college, one of the things that is vital for you to do is look at the programs that you are interested, look at what you need to get into them, look at the requirements for the specific program. Always make a plan with where you want to go, and you can talk to an academic advisor to help you get to where you want. If you do not prepare this early, you may not be able to transfer to that specific program. So make sure you get everything you need, and I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Young adults that are thinking of going to university, look at what is required and talk to your local community college academic advisors to make sure that you get what you need. You actually want to go into different areas. Always remember that the best source to find out what you need for a specific university is the university you're looking for, and I'll show you and tell you about that a little bit. Now, first thing I would tell you to do, even before you talk to an academic counselor, is go to the program that you're interested in website before you do anything else. Now, the reason is this: schools and programs will tell you what they want you to have, and many times people don't do this, so they apply and they don't have what the program is looking for. Again, think of this as a job. If you put money into putting an ad telling people, hey, look, I'm looking for a person who can do X, Y, and Z, and you have someone who applies who cannot do that, would you hire them for that job? The next thing is look at the classes that are required for the program that you want. This is actually for a couple different reasons. There are some classes, such as in nursing, if someone's going for nursing, they have to take anatomy, physiology, and micro, and these are among the hardest classes that they'll have to take. Like I said, KPBS actually did a article based on this, and they said that it had a really low pass rate even for people who had already gotten into special programs. When you're looking at the website, also look at what students they are looking for. For instance, some of the schools will tell you that, oh, we want students who are interested in the groundbreaking research of this program, understands where this program is going. if a program is telling you that they want you to know, they want students who know where that specific program is trying to go, that's what you really want to highlight in everything you do. And I'll show that a little bit later. The other thing I actually, and I tell this to all my students, is look at who the students who got in. A lot of times people think, oh, well, they say that all you need is a GPA and a test score, and that's it. But the thing is, a lot of times the GPA is just to apply, and when you look at the average student who got in, the GPA is phenomenally higher. And so if that's the case, you need to actually do stuff to make sure you get to the level of the people who got in. Now, what I'm actually going to deal with is looking at how you would go through applying for a med school if you don't have any degree whatsoever. And I'm going to start with the med school, but it's going to work with everything else. So I did use a specific medical school, but I also looked at different facts so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, if you're applying to a med school, you can go to a med school's website and see what they tell you the undergraduate degree they are looking for. Some will specifically tell you one. A lot of them, almost most of them, will tell you they're looking for a degree that shows that this person has an interest in something. The next thing that you want to look at is what the requirements are. A lot of times people will tell you what they think the requirements are, just like they'll tell you what degree you should get for med school. And in reality, most of these times, these are well-meaning people who don't know. I would tell you, if someone isn't in that program, really go to the program and see what the program itself is telling you. The other thing I would tell you is when you look at any website, in this case I'm using a med school, what else do they tell you you need? There are a lot of times things will tell you need in particular, and if you do not have it, you are not going to be considered. And sometimes what ends up happening is someone may have it, but they didn't document it, and so they're not going to be admitted either. The other thing that's really important is to look at who got in, which is called the demographics. If you know who got in, you know what you really need. So what undergraduate do medical schools want? So this is someone who doesn't have any education, has just graduated high school, and is trying to figure out what major because they want to be a medical doctor. Now, one of the things I tell people is when you look at the websites, a medical school, I used a particular medical school and they had a mission statement. And one of the things to realize is they pay people a lot of money to write these. So read them and understand what they're actually saying. Now, this medical school, what it actually wrote is, it's renowned for its commitment to pushing the boundaries of scientific discovery and clinical innovation. You can see where it was. I did use UC San Diego for it. This is from there. And they stress a collaborative environment where students, faculty, and healthcare professionals converge, advancing the frontiers of medicine. If you notice in this statement, they talk about the pushing the boundaries of scientific discovery and clinical innovation. Two things, scientific discovery and clinical innovation. What they're telling you is look at what science is going on. Try to get involved in some sort of scientific process. Look at what's new, what's coming out clinically, and look at how you can get involved in that. And sometimes it's actually not the way you believe. There's a lot of hospitals now that are doing art therapy. So someone who is a art major or a early childhood development major may actually be working with art therapy, may be able to volunteer to do art therapy and use that as clinical innovations. So big thing is look at what they're telling you. Now, this actually means a couple things. One is they're looking for research and innovations, new aspects of medicine. So this doesn't mean it has to be a hard science. Which of their programs do they emphasize? Now, one of the things I did do is I didn't want to actually show because I wanted to make it more random. And what I actually found is this particular medical school says they were stressed a lot of things of working with diverse populations. But a lot of people forget that working with diverse population can be as simple as going to an inner city school and working with disabled students, or if there's an immigrant population, working with the immigrant populations, or working with the LGBT community. What they're looking for is diverse. They're looking for, can you work with the diverse population? And the reason that's important is in health, you will be working with a lot of different people. It also tells you about research. It's mentioned so many times on our website. And so if this were a school you'd be interested in, you really want to start getting involved in research. They mentioned their post-baccalaureate programs, and a lot of schools do have these. These are also important because it will help get you into the field. Uh, they actually do have a program where they pair people up with doctors so they can shadow to see what they do, and they stress that. So again, it's a good idea to shadow a doctor, see if they are doing what you actually like. The other thing they actually stressed was unique jobs and unique activities. So one of the things, they actually mentioned some unique jobs in particular, and they are interested in that so you understand more on the population you're serving. Now, I rounded off the number so you can see roughly, but this particular med school ended up having 140 students, and they had 9,000 applicants. So what this means is they took the best 1.5% of applicants. That means that if you think about this, 9,000 applicants, if they're only choosing 140 out of the 9,000 applicants, you really have to push yourself and show that you have everything that they want and even stuff that will surprise them. Now, I actually looked around and I saw that some medicals do not require specific coursework. Some actually do. And so you actually have to go to the website to see what they're asking about. If they tell you you don't need anything, but they highly recommend it, and one of the medical schools I did look at, because I did go on beyond that for this slide, was they actually recommended 1 academic year of college level biology, uh, general chemistry. But one of the things to remember is this is what they're recommending. It doesn't mean you have to get this. I'll go to that later. And the reason they actually do this is because it makes their evaluation process easier. If you think about this, if you're hiring someone, the easier they make the process, the more likely you will be to accept them. That doesn't mean that you necessarily need all this. You could apply and maybe you have other things in mind that it will show that you're a better candidate for this. And you may not need all of this for specific medical schools. Again, you would want to make sure that you look at what the medical school is telling you is required. Now, there's a organization, American Association of Medical Colleges, and what they say about majors, which is one of the things that people always tell you if they are not in a program is, oh yeah, you want to be a hard science major. And the AAMC specifically says this is a misconception. Uh, Consider majoring in whatever interests you. Make sure you're engaged in that. Um, Medical schools want students who are authentic with their genuine interests. So even though you are trying to make yourself what they are telling you they want, you also want to choose something that's gonna show your interest. Now, they actually have something about getting a degree in one of the health professions, and they tell you not it is best not to choose health profession if you do not intend to practice in that profession. So if you are thinking that you may not, you want to go into nursing because you think it's going to prepare you for medical school, and you don't have any intention to work in nursing, it's not the best major to have for you. Now, according to the medical school's website, it actually had this as one of the things within their mission statement. This incoming year, pretty much areas of study were anthropology, visual arts, dance, Spanish, history, Native American studies. The reason I actually highlighted this in particular, even though you have earth and planetary science and biology, all these, is because what this is telling you is they don't care what your major is. What they want you to show is that you have an interest in something that you can score a really high GPA. This will keep going. Now, what was required to apply and what was accepted? Now, they had said you need an MCAT score, but they didn't have a score that you needed to apply. But their average was 516, What that means is if you get a 516, you are probably on their average. If you're applying as an average, it means you also have to have everything else average. So your ideal thing is, if when you are going to take the MCAT, is to do things to make sure you can get higher than 516. There are courses that exist to help you out. The other thing that a lot of people stress is a GPA. And if you look at what they tell you need to apply, you need a 3.0. That's to apply. Again, the average of their accepted was 3.81. What that is telling you is if you have a 3.0, chances are we are well below the average. And so you better have a perfect MCAT score and a perfect everything else you do has to be perfect, and you have to have some way to explain why your GPA would be less than average. So for medical schools, what we see is a majority of them require a GPA, an MCAT, as being important, but their minimum to apply isn't necessarily based on reality. Meaning if you have the minimum, chances are you're not going to get in unless you have something, beyond everyone else. The other thing they mention is research. So if you are thinking of going to med school, look at doing some sort of undergraduate research. Community colleges, sometimes you can talk to professors who are interested in a project. It doesn't say you have to publish. All it says is you have to do some sort of research. And they also talk about working unique jobs. So that's actually one thing that if they're mentioning on their website, it's something important to them. So the thing is, while you're looking at, an undergraduate, before you apply to med school, it's important to, again, make your uh, curriculum vitae match what the program's mission statement is. And the one thing that they keep on mentioning is everyone's mentioning is majoring what interests you, not what you think will get you in. No. Why don't students get into the schools they want? Like I said, a lot of times they don't fulfill the program requirements. They might think they do, but if they didn't do their job, if they didn't actually find what the program is looking for, they may have all their prerequisites to get into another school, but not in the one they want. And so again, when you actually are doing this, make sure you have the program that you want to get in specific checklists. A lot of times students rely on people telling them what they are doing, what they need to do, rather than what the program tells them. So again, check the program to avoid missing what you need. Make a checklist. Once you have a checklist, then talk to your academic advisor to make sure you can get where you want to be. A lot of times people show up again to academic advisors and they blame them for them not getting what they want, but they haven't done the work. And so if you think about it, if someone tells you that they want to be a mechanic, it's like, all right, this is all you need to become a mechanic. But if you want to be a mechanic for NASCAR, there's a lot more you would need. And so it's not just what do I need? It's this is where I'm going. This is what they tell me they want me to have. How do I get there? And if you do that, your chances will improve. How to know what you need to get in? You've already seen me say this. You have all the knowledge known to man in the palm of your hands and your cell phones. So go to the department you're interested. Look at their website. Look at what they tell you they want. Look at their mission statement, and also Google and find what the average admitted student population looks like. Another important thing is be honest with yourself. If the average population has a 3.9 in three hard classes, and you weren't able to get an A, your chances of getting there is going to be limited. So be honest with yourself, and the program that you are looking at may not be the one that's going to let you get in. So you may want to actually look at other programs because of that. Other important thing to know is who your competition is. Now, a lot of people think their competition is someone who's in the class with them. In reality, most of the people in your classes are not competing with you. The people who are competing with you, the person you should see as your competition is the average person who got into the program you want. Even if the GPA requirement is low, if the average person who got in has an extremely high GPA, that's where you have to be. Look for things that make you fit the program's mission statement. Attempt to match it the best you can, and sometimes you'll actually be surprised how easy it is. It's just writing stuff down that you already do. The other thing is look for things that make you stand out in any way. Remember, you have a lot of competition, so you want to make sure that you have what the competition has plus more. I read an article I may have mentioned where there was a engineering program where people were rejected who had a 4.0 GPA. And some parents got upset. How is it my son has a 4.0, but daughter has a 4.0, and they didn't get into this program? And the thing that the school said is, well, a 4.0 GPA doesn't mean anything when we have 200 seats and we have 3,000 applicants who have a 4.0. And so a lot of times it's what else does the student have? Now this is actually what I tell students based on how old they are. If they're 15 years old, I actually tell them to do certain things. If they're about to graduate, I tell them a certain thing, which is really similar to what I tell people if they're older without a bachelor's or even older with a bachelor's. If you are considering, there is one thing that I do tell people if they have a degree and they're considering a professional change, and that is not to discount your degree. A lot of people I've had discount it. They think, oh, my bachelor's is in, uh, let's say, poetry, and I now want to go into mathematics. Well, a lot of times they don't care what your degree is in, they just want you to have the prerequisites and a degree. And so you don't have to get another bachelor's and then go for the master's. A lot of times you can apply straight for the master's. And if you have the requirements that they need, it may be that your degree is so unique that you will have a higher chance of getting in. Now, what I actually tell people is to look at stuff. And one of the things I tell people, especially when they're going to eventually transfer, and even if you're 16, I always tell people to look at the maximum amount of units most universities will accept for a transfer. The average semester units accepted at transfer is about 68 semester units. To get an associate's, you need a minimum of 60. Most classes are between 3 and 5 units, and a full-time student usually takes about 12 to 15 units. What that means is you can get an associate's degree in 2 years if you take the right amount of units. I'll talk more about that. Now, if you're a high school student not knowing where you want to go, then I tell you to do certain things. One is, don't worry about it, your major. Don't worry about where you want to go, but make sure you increase your chances of wherever you want to go, especially if you decide later that you want to go to something relatively competitive. The best way to do that is to look at what is available. And so one of the first things I tell people, if they are 15, is to start looking into taking classes at local community colleges that they will enjoy. And the reason is these classes will transfer to high school as honors, and they will also transfer to most universities. Some people actually call this double dipping or triple dipping even at times because it actually fulfills 3 different requirements, and there's actually a lot of reasons to do this. One is if you're trying to get into a competitive university, this puts you at a higher GPA. Instead of being a 4.0 GPA, you can end up having a 4.5 GPA. And so that's the reason that you want to do this, is it puts you at a higher level of competition. The other thing I tell people who are 15 who are looking at what to do next is look at your possible hobbies for majors. Don't worry too much yet about, well, what am I going to do with the future? In part because most people do not work in a field that's related to their major. There are certain things that require special licensing, so those are different, but if you have no idea what you want to do, you can actually start taking classes to be able to work your way to something that you may like. You can also see if there's any class that you like that you maybe didn't think about, which could be a career later on. The way I tell people to do this is if you have a child who's 15 years old, or if you're a child who's 15 years old, start taking classes as soon as you can. Look at taking a easy 1-unit class the summer before you turn 16 if you can. Know that that's going to transfer over. In the fall, when you turn 16, you can actually take 2 semester units, take another one in summer, so you'll get about 15 units a year. And so by the time you graduate, that summer that you graduate, you will actually have 30 units already. which is about what you need for, well, it'll get you, I'm sorry. So every year you will actually get 30 units. So by the time you graduate, you will actually have the units for a associate's, or you can apply, you know, and transfer all your units, all the units you worked in. Now there are some people who come into, and at 15 they know exactly what they want to do. And if you are one of those people, or if you have a child who's one of these people, one of the things I tell you is look at some of the universities that have special programs which increase the success in that field. There are some universities that have specialized bachelor's programs that if you get into it, you have something like a 30% increase in salary. And so look at the programs and look at what the programs that you are interested in require and prefer for admissions. Pay a lot of attention if they actually mention any certificates that help you stand out. For instance, I knew a gentleman who, while he was in high school, got certificates in uh, programming AI computers, and that's something that will actually boost their chances of getting into specialized programs. Uh, if you begin taking college classes, I actually highly recommend this because what it will do is help prepare you for the college life. It will also help prepare you for the program that you want to go into. It will also, like I said, increase the possibility your GPA, and so you can actually end up having a higher GPA when you apply. And if you don't get into the program that you want, the dream program, you might be able to have the units already to transfer directly into get in as a transfer. So you can apply twice the same year. Okay, now there are actually, if you have a degree and you don't know where you're going, or if you didn't get a degree and now you're thinking of changing professions and you're going to community college, there are a couple things I actually tell people. First is don't worry too much as your major. If you have a major in something that is different than what you think you want to go into, don't badmouth your major. Don't say, well, I only have a major in whatever. Realize that it is a major. You have a bachelor's already, and so look at where you actually want to go. I don't know how many students I have who have bachelor's degrees, have clinical experience because they worked in clinic for a while, and instead of applying for certain programs that are geared for people with bachelor's degrees and clinical experience, they're looking at going to getting either a associate's in something else that it'd be great, but a lot of times even the associate's programs are going to look at these people and it's like, you have clinical experience, you have this, why are you applying here? There are going to be a lot of people who do, and so a lot of people will get in, but look at where you're at. Look at where you're at. If you don't have a major, again, look at your hobbies for possible majors, especially if what you want to get into doesn't have a required major. Another important thing that people forget is to look at what is required for the program. Do not rely on other people telling you, oh no, you need this, you need that. Look at what the program tells you. Their websites, they pay a lot of money for that. So their websites will tell you what they're looking at. And if you're interested in a specific program, gear yourself for that program. Again, I've said this a lot. Do not listen to people who are not in the program. Look at what the program is telling you on their websites, and that's what you want to be. That's where you're trying to go. Remember to look at who got into the program, not just the minimums to apply. I've seen a lot of programs where the minimum to apply were 2.0, but their lowest GPA for the class that got in had a 3.9. If you have a 2.0 and most students are getting over 3.9, your chances of getting in there are not going to be rational. So look, you have to look at that. You have to look at what you need. The other thing I would tell you is do not badmouth your own experiences. Your own experiences are yours and they make you unique, and they can actually show that you are a different person than everyone else who's applying. And so use your past to actually show what you're doing. The other thing I tell people is look for unique jobs and opportunities and internships to make yourself stand out. And remember, an academic advisor can help you a lot, but the best way to have them help you get from, let's say, community college to the program that you're interested in is to prepare yourself before you talk to them. Now, I hope you actually enjoyed this. I hope you found some benefits to this. I am actually going to do another video on how to excel in classes like anatomy, physiology, and microbiology, because I've noticed that a lot of students go in without having a firm understanding. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments section. I will try to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you and have a nice day.